Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, I know that my guests are showing up with a couple of things that I deem very expensive, and I want to take the time to let them know that I do appreciate the fact that they are here. The time that they spent, time to me is a very precious commodity, and many of us don't understand the value of it. The other is their journey, and that journey houses much pain and joy and all of the growth pain that comes with it. And I want to create a space by which they can feel safe to share with us so that you and I can learn and become better human spirits. Aureal, thank you for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Ken, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and I welcome this opportunity to share my experience. May it benefit people who are listening.
I'm excited. Tell them all the things that you have currently. I know you do have a lot, and you are involved in a lot, and I want you to express all of it because you have given birth to all of that, and it's important that they get a chance to see what you have accomplished from your journey.
Thank you, Ken. The first piece of work that I invite people to is my book, and it's 5D Ordinary Experiences, Ordinary Descriptions of an Extraordinary Shift. That's what my work is about our collective shift into this quantum leap of higher frequency consciousness. It's happening everywhere. And in the book, I connect the dots of how the changes since the 60s are really related to one big quantum leap. So there's the book. And if people are interested from that book, I offer guided imagery sessions. And the purpose of this is to help people realize they already know. I help people relax. The deeper a person can relax, the more they can connect with their intuition. So there's guided imagery sessions about any issue that they want to explore. I offer astrology readings, and astrology has a bad name, but basically it's our cosmic connection with life. And when we're born, there's a map of the sky that imprints our life pattern, basically. Not that it's set in stone, but it helps for those who are interested in looking at this connection. It helps to understand how the planets might be situated in that cosmic map at the moment of birth. And my work with astrology has taken a new level because connected to 5D, since 2000, there have been these planets discovered in the deepest part of space. And officially they're called dwarf planets, and I call them, along with other astrologers, we call them the 5D planets because they're helping us raise our consciousness and live this new level of loving and living unconditionally. So an astrology reading has all of these planets and how they might be showing up in a person's birth chart and how that shows up in daily life and what the opportunities are. And for those who are really interested, I combine a package where they can have the birth chart reading. And in the birth chart reading, there's also information about their elemental balance, fire, air, water, and earth, and the modality balance, initiating, holding, or integrating. These are signatures that we all have. We look at those. We look at some natural timing cycle related to the moon and where the moon was when they were born. And then we go into the 5D planets. So that's the birth chart. And then the second part in that series is a guided imagery. And in this session, Ken, we relax deeply first, and then we go journey out to the 5D planets that are most prominent in the person's life. And what people experience in this session is that they already know, and they also experience the interrelational connection with the cosmos. You know, we talk to our pets, we talk to our plants. It's the same thing with cosmic energies. We live in a bidirectional universe. So there's a There's a give and take connection. It's alive and interactive. So that's the second session. And people often feel very empowered after this session because they know that they know, and that through the session they realize that they know, and that they can go back to that experience whenever they want and as often as they want. And then the third part of that series is an integration of the first two sessions and what's next, what is the path forward based on the learning experience they had from those first two sessions. So those are the ways that I work with people. I also write a weekly blog post that helps people introduce themselves to a new relationship with time related to aligning our body energy with the lunar energies. And then I go into how that lunar week connects to the fifth dimensional access. And then from there, I give a how-to. So there's a free opportunity to connect through my blog. And all of this is available through my website, which is aurealwilliams.com. And it's AUREAL Williams.com. So thanks for that opportunity to share my work, Ken.
Oh, you're welcome. It is important. I love to have my guests share the things that they have given birth, because it didn't all of a sudden just happen. There was a process by which they got there. And so all of those insights that they got in from their journey, they are then able to put it in a format by which they can serve others. And that is why what you have laid out there, those are the things that you have gained, the insight, and you are able to serve others based from the revelation that you, that individual, the I am that is you, that you are able to move forward and assist those to see the greatness that is within. It's very important that they hear all of that, because I want to walk back, Aureal, to go back before you got to that place. And I always take people through the journey. Tell us a little about your family upbringing. The family unit is one of the first places that we began to, if you will, to begin to be programmed about how we should live or ought to live and so forth. There are other entities that contributes to that, but it happens as we move along in our life, and we start in our family, and within the family we have religion. Outside, as we begin to move forward, we have the education system, then we have corporate America, and all of this is overseen by society as a whole, that also has its programming that it wants to control you and I. Talk to us first about your family unit as to how that was once you came and resided in your body as a individual.
Yes, that's the starting point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to upset your audience members or scare them, but I come from the experience or understanding that of reincarnation, and, life is repeated. And that we choose our families. So that is my opening line when I begin to share my family story, is I know that I signed up for this, and my family of origin story is very painful and difficult. There was an in utero experience that my mother didn't want me, and she wasn't ready, and it's, again, I take full responsibility. I chose this. This is my story, but I came in not wanted, and that is finding my sense of belonging. My place of belonging is my life story, and so I'm the oldest of 4 children, and there's 7 years between my sister and I, and my mother was an only child. No, she wasn't an only child. She was an only girl, and she always wanted a sister. So when my sister was born, my mother got a sister as well as another daughter, and I overheard my mother one time on the phone talking to her friend, and she said that my sister was her favorite child, and this was no surprise. And my sister and I have a loving, really deep connection. So again, there's no blame, there's no judgment. It's just the way it was, And so in family photos, Ken, when, in childhood, all of those photos, I'm off to the side. The family is all together, sitting close together, and I'm off to the side. So you can't make this up. It's right there, in the visual history and certainly in a lived experience. And then the other parts of it are that again, going back to astrology, my father his sun sign was Cancer. And that's a very difficult or challenging sun sign for a man to have because it's more feminine, receptive, moody. My father was very moody, emotional, and my mother was a Scorpio. And I grew up in the time right before the shift when women came into their own power, like in the 40s and the 50s. And my father was one who didn't want my mother to drive. He wouldn't let my mother drive. He wouldn't let my mother work. So I had this role model of a very soft father and then a mother who was, as a Scorpio, she was very powerful and dynamic, but she didn't have any outlet for it. So it was a challenging upbringing. And I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I couldn't wait to leave. I wanted a bigger sense of the world. And so I did. When I was 21, or 20, I went to live in Boston, and that was a very, world opening experience for me because Boston is so intellectual and stimulating. And so I was there for 29 years. But to go back a little more to the family, so I never felt like I belonged. I never felt like I was connected. And that speaks to my sense of like, I think many of your listeners, a sense of being a cosmic being. And my life challenge has been to integrate the spiritual cosmic being with the human being. And that's what we're doing in the fifth dimensional shift. And as it's every day I'm learning how to do this and understanding more of that integration.
As a young person, how old were you when you overheard that conversation that your mom had?
Oh, I was, let's see, it was before the 6th grade, probably the 4th grade. But wow. I sensed it all along. There was just this tension. And for those people who know a little about astrology, my moon is opposite Uranus. Uranus is the planet of change, and the moon, it represents our mother on one level. So there was always this tension of, the maternal link of the mother link to life just kept inviting me to expand.
And within that tension, Aureal, how did you manage yourself as an individual, seeing and understanding that you are an outsider? How did it affect you as an individual as you began to experience that and as you began to grow?
Yes, Ken, that is a definite stream of my life story. I tend to be a hermit, and I'm very comfortable being by myself. My preference is silence. I live by myself, and I very rarely, I don't have a television. I do watch TV on a device, but I don't have a television. I never have a radio on or music. I like silence. That's my vibe. And so I coped, or I was sustained by this spiritual connection, that I still don't understand. I mean, who knows? But I was sourced through a cosmic and a spiritual sense of living that really sustained me, that comforted me. This is not conscious, it's a felt experience, but it's not necessarily conscious. So just, there was a deep grounding in that I did belong, but just not in the ways that most people understand belonging.
Yeah, yeah. And as far as your relationship to those that were in high school, being someone that is in love with the separation in a way, but yet how did you respond to those outside of your school and stuff like that, being put in a situation where you have to engage in conversation with others?
Well, I basically didn't. I mean, I was pretty much isolated. I'm somebody that's always had a few friends, not a large group of friends. That's just not me. So I was, there was just a very small circle. I remember, this is much later in my life, in probably my 50s, I had an intuitive reading with an intuitive who I loved and trusted her work, and she no longer works now, but I remember one of the readings, she said, even your friends don't understand you. So I'm just like this being that's floating along, and somehow I get sustained. I mean, I loved fashion, and I loved presenting myself well, and I was really always intellectually active and curious, but I was very isolated, basically, and that served me well.
Now, did the curiosity led you to reading, seeking out information as a young person? Did it? Okay.
Absolutely. And there's a cosmic link, or there's cosmic blessings or spiritual blessings that happen in our lives. When we try to align, when we do our best to align with who we are, there's feedback and there are signs. And so the moving to Boston was instrumental because, in Boston, first of all, it's such an educational city. And I was exposed to higher education and learning. And I was also exposed to community because it was when I was still living in Cincinnati before I moved, I got connected through one of my friends. I got connected to a meditation group. And so that spark had been ignited. And then when I got to Boston, I was really spiritually curious, and I got connected to, a Native American community. I mean, none of us were Native American, but the teacher was Native American, and she lived in Vermont. So it was a close connection to Boston. So there was a spiritual community of more people like me, so there was a like-minded and a reflective experience in that. That was also the time that I really immersed fully into holistic health and natural healing and connecting with nature as a way of healing. So my curiosity was well fed by the move to Boston.
That's awesome. So here you are, you're moving through your space and adapting, and you found your space, a community in Boston by which you are now able to grow. You're now able to expand, if you will. As this young woman expanding and gaining knowledge, how did that knowledge and that community lifestyle began to affect Aureal, the individual, the young woman? How did she begin to manage with the world again and with others and with her increased knowledge?
Yes, Ken. Well, the immersion into the spiritual community really supported what was my inner of wanting to live in integrity, of wanting to be true to myself. I think sovereignty is a word that's very much in play now, but I think very early on, I knew that I wanted to live as a sovereign being. And certainly with the Native American tradition, there's talk of them as a sovereign nation. And so there was somehow a dispersing or a filtering down of what it meant to be a sovereign being. And so, and then Native American, you walk the sacred path, you walk what's your truth. And so that really was a great beginning for me on my life path of just understanding what is true to me and And because I was able to not be so influenced by peer pressure, I was able to filter out that I didn't have to do what everybody else did. I had to listen. And I don't know when it started, but it's very clear now that one of my highest goals is to live the intuitive life. It's to live by intuition 100% of the time. And that's what I try to help people who work with me do, because to me, there's nothing else but intuition. It's that inner knowing that's sourced through your body, through your cosmic connection.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the body, and I was talking, and I've said this before on my show, that man has learned how to manipulate the five senses that we have, the ones that are visible, that the body expresses. They have learned how to manipulate that. And usually when someone gets hurt is because of that one of those or several of those emotions were, manipulated, and expectation came and they got hurt. But I always ask people, that intuition speaks loud, Aureal, but we tend to quiet it when, because I put it this way, we talk it out of its warning. And that's who we are. It is, I believe it's the individual, the real individual that is trying to speak, but we quiet it. An example is if I was talking with someone a few days ago, and she met this guy, and all the physical stuff was great, but her intuition, her inner being kept telling her that this guy is no good. But she had a conversation with herself and told the intuitive part of her, saying, no, he's gorgeous, he's beautiful, I want to be with him. She made that decision to be with him, and he caused her more pain than she can ever have. And so I agree that the fact that you are able to teach people to be led that way will save them from a lot of pain, if you will, once we begin to live from that space first and allow to experience the emotional part. But I think as you mentioned, that aspect of our life, we have to learn it and learn it good, because we have to live there every single day.
That's right, Ken. And I want to, my perspective is that young lady or that lady needed to learn that. It's not.
Oh, yes.
Our learning.
It made her a better person.
Yeah, exactly. Our learning is not linear. It's spiral, and it takes us a while. It's not so much about identifying your intuition. It's about building trust in your intuition. And that takes time. That takes practice. And for instance, I will, we can start small. Like I'll go to a grocery store and I'll pick up a lemon or an orange or a grapefruit, and I'll hold it in my hand and I'll say, is there life for me with this or not? And I know my responses. And if I get a yes, then I put it in the basket. If I get a no, I put it down and look for another one. So people can practice their intuition in really simple, everyday ways, so that when the big things come, they have had a relationship with their intuition that's based on trust.
Yes, I agree. I do the same. I remember when I started to train myself in that aspect of my living. Especially like when I'm outside, when I come from my house and I move into the world, I pay attention to that, and I taught my children that, and my sons have given me testimonies that it has saved their lives many times. I would tell them, if it feels wrong, it is wrong. And so one of my youngest son was telling me he and several of his friends were going to this club, and they were in their car on the way there, and his inner man is just dancing. And he said he heard my voice saying it. If it feels wrong, it is wrong. Move. And so he told his friends, he says, let's go. Do not stop. Let's keep past this club. And he said about a couple hours later, there was shooting in that club where several people died and so forth. So, and that is something that I made my sons aware of. I taught them how to recognize it, how to live from it, and how to be. And so it is possible. And you just have to, as you said, practice it, and where you're able to trust yourself when and once you begin to feel the changes happening, and then you adjust accordingly what you need to do as far as your intention at that time. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
That is a powerful story, Ken. And what I'm appreciating about our exchange here right now is your depth and your pacing. You were slow, and modern people just keep rushing, and to feel our intuition, we have to slow down,
Yes,
so there's a gravity within you, a depth within you that really supports that. So many blessings on your sons, your family.
Thank you. I was listening to you. I look at my boys, and when you were talking about your story, and your mom had said to your sister that she was your favorite. I have 5 boys, and so each one of them, my eldest was Jonathan. I would go and sit down with Jonathan, and I would say to him, "You are my favorite Jonathan in the entire world." I would go to Josiah and say, "You are my favorite Josiah in this entire world." And so I went to all of them, Nathaniel, Joshua. I went to all of them and told them that you were my favorite, and I made it specific to them. And so because I understand the dynamics of siblings and how that can be used as a weapon. And once it's weaponized, it creates a tremendous amount of trauma. And so I recognized that. And so I had enough sense, if you will, to approach them at that level, so that each one of them felt the same intensity as to my love and my affection to them as an individual. I was trying to show them that individually, this is how I feel about you as an individual, even though they know collectively I love them all.
That's wisdom, Ken. That's wisdom.
Thank you. So here you are. I mean, you've been exposed to a tremendous amount of things. The Indian piece of it, and that teaching, because that whole belief system is about the individual person learning about their individuality and the power that is within their individuality, and to be exposed to that and all the others around you, Aureal, that must have been such a life changer for you, coming from where you were, and landing in that particular thing. So how did this young girl, again, as she began to embark and grow as an individual? Now, I want to put it to you as, how did you begin to look at yourself and figure out that you begin to love yourself, the fact that you are this different, the fact that you are this one of a kind, and you understood it? What was your relationship with you at that time?
It kept growing, Ken, like you said, of an interconnection with myself. And so in Boston, I got to Boston in the late 70s and the early 80s. It was really a very engaging, rich time of community that extended from my spiritual community into an astrology community. And at that time, there were 3 astrology groups within the community, and I was a member of all of them. So I was getting exposed to, astrology, like so many professions, is infinite. The learning is endless, and you can go down any particular path. And so I was immersing myself in all of this learning that helped me understand my individuality. And I connected with the moon. I have a very strong connection with the moon, And from that, I have developed a sense of timing. And that's why I'm noticing your pace, because where my work has led me, this fifth dimension, I see that there's 5 pillars of access, and they're loving unconditionally. They are living by intuition. They are having a new relationship with time. They are letting go, and the last one is living your sovereignty. And so, my biggest access to all of these is through a new relationship with time. And that's how I got to know my individuality even more. There's, talk about mothers. For me, the moon is an ultimate mother. She just, in my direct experience, she loves us so much. And she has been teaching us since the beginning of humanity. She's up in the sky, and each month she flows with change. And that's a change that's reflected within us. So from this work with the moon, I got to see that there's a personal and a collective connection to life. And it's in and out. It's self and other. It's personal and collective. And this is the horizontal and the vertical axis. So the horizontal axis on the east is self, and on the west is other, and then at the top is the collective, and at our feet is the individual or the inner. So I've basically found my sense of self through spiraling on this axis that keeps changing, collective to personal, inner to outer, self to other. There's nothing that's static. It's all dynamic. So that's how I keep flowing. I keep flowing and keep evolving. And we're not, even when we're dead, it's probably not finished, our learning. So it's like, it's endless. It's infinite and it's endless.
Yes, I believe that's just another adventure that we're about to take, another journey. The body keeps you and I here so that we could enjoy the human experience on this planet, in this dimension. But as you said, there are other dimensions. And I'm sure that once we vacate this body that keeps us here, we then have access to other places, other dimensions, if you will. And so we are here to learn and become better students of the self, the individualness of who we are. But yet there is this connectivity that you can sense once you have been awakened. And when you are awakened to that, you then respond differently to people. One of the things that I learned in my journey was the uniqueness of who I was, that I'm one of a kind, that I'm so special. My eye, my retina is different from anyone, because that's how industries were designed, so that they can identify me through my retina, my fingerprint, my voice. All of these things have made me unique and very special. And then I came to the conclusion that I am one of a kind. I am an endangered species. So then if I came to that conclusion about myself, then I must recognize that everyone that is on this planet is also an endangered species. They're also one of a kind. And I ought to offer them the same respect and honor that I give to me, because I am talking with someone just as unique, just as powerful, just as strong as I am. It's simply based on the revelation that they have of who they are. But still, my responsibility is to behave with one that have the understanding of the revelation. And I love that person regardless. And that's where I believe we're called to walk. And it's a hard place, but it's a rewarding place. It is the place that we all ought to live from and live through. So as you're moving, Aureal, how did you, and I'm sure it must have been a natural progression, where you move through, but I want you to identify, if you can, the situation that caused you to move into the space of becoming a coach, becoming someone that is, with all the information that you've gained, how did you proceed to that aspect of your growth?
Ken, first of all, I want to back up to what you just said is, to me, the description of 5D, the fifth dimension, where we live our sovereignty and everybody else is a sovereign being as well, and everybody is included. So we don't need to have scarcity consciousness or fear. There's enough and space enough for everybody. So yes. And to answer your question, it was a constant evolution. I constantly reinvented myself. I ended up in nursing, and I did many different pieces of work in various parts of nursing, and I would do work for a while, and then I'd quit a job, and I'd try to have my own, like in the 90s, I tried to have my own business and helping people relax, because I'm really good at that. But it was, it was hard to do. It was hard to sustain. And so I went back to nursing, and I kept evolving like that from really basically the 70s through just till recently. And it's a constant reinvention of myself, where I keep waking up to new awareness, higher frequency, and then I go with that. So it's a spiral of an evolving life.
Yeah, that is, yes, and it does. And I tell people that is how we ought to be living, I believe, because, we see the snake shed its skin, and it outgrows it, and it puts on another colors, another newness of self. We see that the representation goes in nature with the butterfly. We see constantly that lesson being taught through nature, and I believe as we live that way, and we move through our life, there is no way that one can become stagnant, if you will. The joy is there, the newness of experience. There's a deepness in life. There's a deepness in the breath when you breathe it. There's a deepness when you hear a sound from a living being, a bird, a dog. There's a deepness that is caused from living in that space, Aureal, and that I try to invite people to get there, because when you get there, everything becomes different. The flavor of life is palatable and strong.
Absolutely, Ken. It's growing. That's a beautiful analogy of the snake shedding the skin and the butterfly. And I like to look at it as if we think about an infant, coming through the birth experience and then just days old, and then growing through infancy and going through being a toddler and learning to walk and talk. And it's the same thing. Even though we're adult bodies and old in age or years, we keep that growth process keeps happening all the time.
Yeah, that's how vast we are. And it is how vast we are. We are a being that is, we are just housed here by a body. And once we leave this body, everything is open. We have choices to make that is beyond what we have experienced here. Talk to us as to when you are before someone, and I know this takes time as it did in your life, if anything of value and, with flavor takes time, a good wine takes time, a good cheese takes time, a good burgundy, if you will, all of these different things that we partake of. A good conversation takes time. All of it, as you mentioned, time. It is, as we learn how to utilize time and walk with it, when someone presents to you and you begin to speak to them and open to them their charts, their relations to the universe. And they begin to understand or get a glimpse. If you will, pull one of those conversations forward and invite us into that and let us know how that person responded when you remember when they got it, if you will, if they say they understood, and how did they respond and how did that make you feel?
Yes, absolutely, Ken. It's all about communication, and that includes nonverbal communication. And so if somebody is entrusting their sacred question to me, as I receive it as such an honor and a gift, and I meet it at the highest, truest level I can, with an awareness of reaching them where they can really understand it and live it at a practical level. So I'm an intuitive, and my way of connecting with another person is body to body. I feel it. And, I work online. I work through Zoom. And so even through that virtual experience, I can intuit, I can feel what's happening with the other person. And so we'll take a guided imagery session as a matter of example. And so we go into a relaxation, and I'm a person that's really easy to, I can relax myself easily. I can calm myself down. And so I calm down, and then I tune into the other person's energy field, and I can sense where there might be blockage. We start with usually it's a head to toe body relaxation. And as we're going through the anatomy, I can see I feel where there's blockage. And so I invite the person to breathe through that space, to simply breathe through it. And then once I feel that's relaxed, we go to a next place and a next place. So that the person gets into a deep, deep relaxation. That's the point. And then from there, they can access their own inner knowing. So people who have worked with me, a typical response is, I knew that, but I didn't know how to put it into words, or I didn't know how to say that, or I didn't really fully understand it where I can own it. A person that I did an astrology reading for, she said, these are all of the things that are reflected back to me in my life, and I never really got it. And now I have a freedom to be it. For her, it was a particular about setting limits with other people. And she said, now I understand where that comes from, and I am empowered to do it. So, and then people, on the guided imagery part, people are astounded with the awareness that they get. The universe is filled with beneficent beings who want to help us. And all we have to do is ask. And we seldom ask, many of us do go through life, keep asking, please show me the way, or please connect with me, or how do I do this? Or, questions, what's my best option, or what's next? These are all questions we can ask. But in these guided imageries, people have a direct experience, Ken, that they are loved and that they are loved. It's so powerful. I just love it.
And that is
it's very humbling.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's one of the things that the teacher will experience is it's how humbling it is to be in that position that someone would entrust them with all that is valuable to them. To be able to walk through and assist them in understanding the who they are and the what in sometimes, and so it is a precious holy place, if you will, to be able to visit.
Absolutely, very
you guys
sacred.
that are listening to us, my audience, you know how I feel about books. I think they are you and purchase Aureal book, get in on her space, the blog. She mentioned a list of them, the coaching, the 5D coaching, the intuitive guided classes. She has public speaking. She is out there for you. The books, as I mentioned, are by way you are having a private one-on-one conversation with the author. You're there in your privacy, in your comfort, if you will, with your coffee and your robe on. And when you are relaxed, the words that were written there came from something, came out of something, and they are alive. And if you are ready, or when you are ready, those pages will become food to your spirit, and they will be able to guide you to the next stages of your life. And so when you read a book, read it with awareness so that you are able to be fed and be changed. Make sure you grab everything that she has. I know she has, as I mentioned, all these different things that I will also put so that you can reach her and have access to this beautiful spirit that is before us. Aureal, I want to thank you for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. This has been a beautiful, powerful conversation.
Ken, I'm so grateful and deeply honored. It's just a divine gift to meet you and your audience. So thank you so much.
You are welcome. Thank you.